Um, Good evening, Huddle. I'm not sensing a lot of energy. I said, good evening, Huddle. That's what I like to hear. Very happy to be here with you on this Monday. We got some good stuff going today, but I'm going to start with a prayer and scripture from Mother Kennedy. Clap it up for her, y'all.
Okay, no, don't go. Let me find out. Hold on. Let me hand me this. I like it. All right. Good evening, Huddle. Okay. How is everybody? Great. Well, we're going to start off this evening. I like always, in all things, they say get understanding, and all things get clarity. So this evening, we're going to start with this, that you, my brothers, sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Gentleness and self-control, against such things there is no Lord. There is no law. Let us pray. Mother, Father, God, creator of the universe, we thank you right now for life, for health, and strength. We ask you to bless National Action Network Huddle. We ask you to bless all the youth gathered here. We ask you to bless all that is here under the sound of my voice. We ask that you give our young people what they need, the desires to be leaders of the future, the ones to carry on after all of us that are elders and older are gone. We ask you to bless our leader, Reverend Al Sharpton. We ask you to bless all of those that is involved in National Action Network, from the top to the bottom and all in between. We ask you to gather and carry us. Bless our parents, our grandparents, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephews, everybody. These and other blessings that we ask in the name of the Mother, Father, and in Jesus' name. All in agreement, Ashe. Amen. Amen. And so it shall be. Amen. Go right there.
Thank you, Mother Kennedy. Clap it up for her. So now I have the Black History Fact of the Day, but with that, we have two today. So first, I would like to call up Kaylee for our first Black History Fact of the Day. Clap it up for her, y'all.
Good evening. Today I'll be reading this Black History fact about Andrew Rube. Andrew Rube Foster, who is hailed as the father of Black baseball, organizes the first baseball league to African American, the Negro National League in Kansas City, Missouri in the double NL operated successfully until 1931.
Thank you, Kaylee. Now, for our second Black History fact of the day, I would like to call up Alyssa. Clap it up for her, y'all.
Good evening. Meet Justina Miles, the HBCU student who made history as the first deaf woman ASL interpreter at the Super Bowl. Justina Miles went viral for her incredible performance. 20-year-old Miles performed Lift Every Voice and Sing in American Sign Language, ASL, during Cheryl Lee Ralph's pre-show performance. She returned during the halftime show to sign Rihanna's performance, her rendition of Rihanna's BBHMM immediately going viral. In Washington, D.C. Today, she's a Bowie State University nursing student who just wanted to be an inspiration to others. Don't let any obstacles prevent you from achieving your dreams and to always believe in yourself to go beyond, Miles told CNBC Make It. This isn't the first time that Miles went viral for her skills. In 2020, she rose to internet fame after signing Lil Kim's 1996 hit during the TikTok Crush on You challenge, which has been watched over 1.1 million times. It's an important moment not only for me to share this experience with the whole world, Miles said, but to really bring that empowerment to millions and millions of Black, deaf people all over the country who's never really seen that before. I feel that is truly lifting for every voice, even my voice. According to the National Association of the Deaf, she's performing ASL renditions of music at various concerts throughout the country. However, when she isn't performing, this Philadelphia native is a track star. She was part of the USA team that went to the 22 Deaf Olympics in Brazil, where she won a silver medal for the 4x100 women's relay, according to CNBC. I value the opportunity to make it possible for all deaf people to enjoy these songs and not have them miss out on the full Super Bowl experience, said Miles. Keep reaching for the stars, Justina.
Thank you, Alyssa. So now I have our Artivism segment by Daniel. Daniel? Clap it up for Daniel, guys.
Art and Artivism here at National Action Network should always be exciting, but we should always carry in our hearts and amongst our spirit the initiative to take action, as this is a National Action Network. So thank you all in attendance. Thank you for all those ears that were listening during the prayer. And we're going to move forward for the Art and Artivism segment right now with the artist Juju. Juju, come through. Introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are. I'm going to prepare your music, and you'll hear the instrumental coming on in the background.
I go by Judah Truth. And this is an invite to my world. I'm straight. Yeah, hey, you spaz on this. Yeah.
You forward, this you?
Mama, y'all keep pumping till it turn gold. This ain't in my head. Would you love me if I turn old? It was snowing then, listen, I was too cold. From start to pride and chain, cause I was too grown. Two stepfathers didn't know who to trust. Any competition, leave him in the dust. Auntie man be ashamed if I'm a bust. Yeah. Who gon' ride like you? Pray for me like you. Feed me, clothe me like you. Who tell me when I'm wrong that I'm right like you? Many tears you shed fucked off the skies. Yeah, 2013 when my uncle died. Asked if it was true. Remember there was no food, but you lied, knew it was true. The first time I did, beat me till I couldn't move. Told me I can be my father. Yeah, that dude. Told you I skipped classes, you was cool. Told me leave these girls alone, they your failure. In my head, you ain't no hater. Told me one the only work, get paper. Now I'm stuck to that money like a stapler. Oh, Mama, y'all keep pumping till it turn gold. This ain't in my head. Would you love me if I turn old? It was snowing then, listen, I was too cold. From start to pride and chain, cause I was too grown. Yeah, put my emotions in the song. This ain't frozen, let it go. So my brother ain't cut like that, let it blow. I listen, now I'm stuck up in that cold. It's freezing in the snow. Yeah, always out of foe, trying to make for my brothers and my sisters, they know. One day my tears turn into crystals, they know. I'm giving all I got to this, if you ain't, yeah. Ooh, I keep my eyes on paper, every day I ain't gon' snooze. You my mans, wish the best for me, cause I ain't gon' lose. That night I could've died if I didn't make that move, yeah. Mom, y'all keep up till it turn gold. This ain't in my head. Love me if I turn old. It was snowing then, listen, I was too cold. From start to pride and chain, cause I was too grown. Yeah.
All right, if you'd like to say something more before you leave the floor, you may.
I go by Jew the Truth. You can follow me on the gram at Jew_DAH_truth. Thank you.
Well, looking, Drew. Did y'all like that? Did y'all enjoy that? I hope so. But let's continue our efforts to truck forward into the future. And here we are with the future right here. Giselle.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to our performer. So now that funness got out the way, I would like to invite our co-founder and membership national director, Dominique Sharpton, for our action alerts. Clap it up for Miss Dominique.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as you know, NAN releases our action alerts every Friday evening for you to stay in the know with what NAN is doing across the country. This past week, Reverend Al Sharpton traveled to London, England, where he met with Black political leaders, students, and screened the documentary Loudmouth. How many people have seen Loudmouth? Almost everyone, yes. So you know it is a great film, and especially in Black History Month, it is very pivotal and important that we check out Loudmouth, especially this month, while everyone is looking for ways to engage and to be knowledgeable of the history and what we've done over the past years, and that charts the path to move forward. So Loudmouth certainly chronicles Reverend Sharpton's life and activism, and it was screened in London, England. And upon arriving to the nation, shortly after eulogizing Tyree Nichols, the 29-year-old Memphis man killed by the police, Reverend Sharpton's message was simple: policing reform is needed. The problems with policing, whether here or in states, often begin with dehumanizing and devaluing Black and brown lives, wrote Reverend Sharpton in an op-ed that appeared this week in The Guardian. At an early age, our children are criminalized, perceived to be older than their age, and treated harshly and unfairly. We saw that in the UK in a case in 2020 that garnered international outrage when a 15-year-old Black girl was strip searched by female officers without the presence of her parents or another adult. The young girl was taken to the school's medical room and strip searched while she was menstruating by officers reportedly looking for cannabis. No drugs were found, and this was not an isolated incident. According to the Children's Commissioner for England, 650 children were strip searched by police in London from 2018 to 2020. The majority were boys, and about 58% were black. Simply unacceptable. Reverend Sharpton arrived in the UK as the guest of Lord Simon Woolley, the principal of Homerton College, Cambridge. Back in 1991, Reverend Sharpton traveled to London to protest the vicious murder of a 15-year-old Roland Adams. He and his younger brother were waiting at a bus stop when they were chased by a gang of white teenagers, many yelling racial epithets. Adam was stabbed in the neck with a butterly knife, and he later died. A contingent of activists from the UK are also working to establish a London chapter of National Action Network and are planning to travel across the pond to attend this year's National Action Network convention scheduled to take place in New York City from April 12th, through the 15th. National Action Network also protests efforts to erase Black History Month from the classroom. Reverend Sharpton will travel to Tallahassee, Florida on this Wednesday, February 15th, to protest Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' late attempts to ban teaching Black history in Florida public schools. Governor DeSantis is trying to turn February into Erase Black History Month, said Reverend Sharpton. Banning these courses is in Chapter 1 of the Playbook for Disenfranchising Black Americans. We'll be in Tallahassee next week to take a stand against the governor's actions and those willing to buckle to his pressure, because our stories and our struggles must be told. Reverend Sharpton will join members of the educational community, students, parents, clergy, members of the Black Caucus, fellow civil rights leaders, and elected officials in a march to the old state capitol to protest Governor DeSantis' attempts to block advanced placement AP African American Studies in Florida's public schools, as well as his continued targeting of Black Floridians, both in the classroom and at the polls, to advance his political agenda. Bishop Rudolph McKissick, senior pastor of the Bethel Church, Reverend Dr. R.B. Holmes, pastor of the Bethel Missionary Baptist Church and the president of Tallahassee's chapter of the National Action Network. Bishop Frank Reed of the AME Church and other civil rights organizations will also join Reverend Sharpton at the march. Marchers will gather at the Bethel Missionary Baptist Church on Wednesday morning before making their way over to the old Florida State Capitol, and there they will begin a rally with a press conference to follow. And all are welcomed. As we know, this is a real threat to our educational rights in America. And if we don't go and stand for Florida, we can't stand for children anywhere. So we're going to Florida on Wednesday, and all are welcome. And stay tuned, because this is going to be an ongoing, continual effort as we are fighting this on a systemic level, but on many different levels, both locally and federally. So please stay tuned to the outpouring of support and what's happening, in the midst of that effort. Save the date. As we've been announcing throughout the program, the National Convention is scheduled to take place April 12th through the 15th. Make sure all of you are registered. It is absolutely free, and you can register on our website or here in person as you visit the House of Justice periodically throughout the week. Thank you so much. And turn it back over to Giselle.
Thank you, Ms. Sharpton. So now I have Gino with our membership and text alerts. Clap it up for Gino, y'all.
Hi, everyone. All right, is everybody an updated member of the year 2023? That's not too good, because I don't hear a lot of y'all, but have any of y'all renewed y'all membership? Still not too much. Well, if not, this applies to you as well. Those who are not members, the best way to stay informed and in the action is to become a member of NAN. Stay informed about NAN events close to where you live. Text Justice followed by your state to 59769. Text justice followed by your state to 59769. And then every Saturday, Reverend Sharpton, he'd be here on the rally at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Gino. So, before I open the floor up to your good news, I want to share my good news. So, Ben Crump becomes first living black attorney to have a school named after him. Yes, very good. So, the Benjamin L. Crump College of Law at St. Thomas University was renamed in a ceremony earlier this week. Crump is a prominent civil rights attorney. Over the years, he has represented families of black victims who died at the hands of law enforcement, including Trayvon Martin and Breonna Taylor, as well as Ahmaud Arbery. He is currently representing the family of Tyree Nichols, a 29-year-old man who died after a traffic stop turned into a deadly police beating. We have come such a long way in the journey to equality, but we are not there yet, Crump said in a statement to Reuters. Out of 199 law schools across the nations, the American Bar Association reports that only one other campus is named after a black lawyer, the Texas Southern University Thurgood Marshall School of Law, named after the first black U.S. Supreme Court Justice, Marshall, died in 1993. Crump made $1 million monetary gift to the school to help support the name change, Reuters reported. In 2022, nearly 80% of St. Thomas's student body was comprised of students of color. 2/3 of the student body was Hispanic and 7% was black, according to ABA. Nationally, non-white law students made up 33% of the population in 2022. According to the ABA figures, only 8% of law students were black. So, there you have it. That's my good news for today. Ben Crump. Shout out to Ben Crump, Black Excellence. So now I would like to open the floor up to you guys. Any good news throughout the weekend, last week?
Tomorrow I'm gonna go to the Urban STEAM Lab, and tomorrow I'm also gonna have a celebration for Valentine's Day in my class.
As you know, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and it's gonna be my very first dance. And me and my friends are planning to dress like each other, but we don't have like the same clothes, so we're just gonna dress all brown.
Well, Kaylee, if you dancing with any boys, we're gonna find out. So,
Hi, everyone. Yesterday, I was at church, and I did some Black History facts, and I did my Black History facts on Reverend Al Sharpton yesterday. And also, I'm on the honor roll at school.
Oh, yeah. I had just made the honor roll for perfect attendance for last month. And for next Sunday, I'm gonna be at church talking about Yusef Salam, Black History facts about him.
God bless you, because when I was in school, I didn't stop playing hooky until I got into college. Well, my good news is that I got called out of the blue to be on FYI radio with Yolanda Hinton to do a Valentine's Day meeting, 9:30 on Wednesday morning. Out of the blue, I love it. I can't wait to do it.
Hello, Huddle family. I am excited to share my good news. Two good things. So I remember in October, Ashley mentioned, I need to be going on a book tour with my book. So my first stop is going to be at Harvard. I have a really great relationship with Harvard, and I'm going to be keynoting the Black Legacy Ball that's happening this Saturday on campus with the Black Excellence at Harvard. And I just want to give a shout out to all the young people and the dope people over there doing all their excellent things at Harvard and taking over with the Black Excellence. The Black Legacy Ball will be from 6 to 9. I'm going to try to live stream, but if I can't live stream, then I will have the video for you guys, and I'll make sure that we do it so we know that next year they need to be bringing out Huddle for the ball. Thank you. We let you know. Chris Eggy, we calling you. And then right after that, I'll be going from Harvard to DC Public Library to do a chat with Martin Luther King III and Atan Thomas, who is my co-author, and we're gonna be there. So everybody's welcome to come. I'll give you the information. You just gotta take a train to DC, and then we'll figure out how to get you from the train to the venue. But yeah, so everybody's open to come, and then we are going to a couple of other schools. Before I announce them, I want to get it solidified. But everybody's welcome to come, especially for the New York schools. So I'll definitely make sure everybody is up to date on that. And I will have some books here for everybody really soon. I know I keep saying that, but you know, it's according to the publishers. But yes, we will get those soon. So I will be sharing that information for those 2 events this weekend. Thank you.
Blessings, Huddle. Just want to shout out, again, Black Excellence. It will be 114 years for the NAACP. Black Excellence, we've been fighting, we're still here. 57 Super Bowls, 2 black quarterbacks, we still fighting. We still here, and I show Black Excellence, we're gonna stand tall. We're doing a lot of programming, and we're doing it right.
Well, thank everybody for their good news. I like what I heard today. So now we could get into the Did You Know segments, because you may not have known. So we're here today to tell you so you can know. So first, let's get into it. We got Trey. Welcome, Trey, y'all.
Thank you. All right. This article's going to be a little long, but I modified it for the sake of time. Dominique talked about this a little bit earlier, but what's going on in Florida, for those of you who are not aware, there's some legislation that's on the table that views and changes the way that African American history is being taught. So let's get into this. DeSantis says Florida requires African American history, but advocates say that the state is failing that mandate. Facing accusations of whitewashing history after his administration blocked a new Black Studies course for high-achieving high schoolers, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida has encountered that Florida students already must learn about the triumphs and plight of African Americans. The state of Florida education standards not only don't prevent, but they require teaching Black history, DeSantis said last week. All the important things that's part of our core curriculum. Indeed, Florida has required its schools to teach African American history since 1994. I wonder what happened before then. Long before the recent push in many states, the move toward a more complete telling of the country's story, that's the started goal at the time was to introduce the Black experience to a generation of young people. That included DeSantis himself, then a student in Florida's public school system when the mandate became law. But nearly 3 decades later, advocates say many Florida schools are failing to teach that history. Only 11 of the state's 67 county school districts meet all of the benchmarks for teaching Black history set by the African American History Task Force, a state board created to help school districts abide by the mandate. Many schools only cover the topic during Black History Month in February, said Bernadette Kelly Brown, the principal investigator for the task force. The idea that every Florida student learns African American history, it's not reality, Kelly Brown said. Some districts don't even realize it's required instruction. The persistent focus in Florida on instruction of African American topics comes as DeSantis has partially built his Republican stardom by targeting public schools for signs of progressive ideologies. His administration has forced K through 12 to comb through their textbooks and curriculum for any evidence of critical race theory or related topics, and he championed a new law that puts guardrails on lessons about racism and oppression. Both measures were cited in the state's decision last month to block a new advanced placement class on African American studies from Florida high schools. On Wednesday, this past Wednesday, the College Board, which oversees AP courses in schools and exams, released an updated framework of African American studies classes that did not include much of the authors and topics DeSantis had objected to. His administration said it was reviewing the changes to see if the course now complies with the state law. Black lawmakers say the State Department of Education under DeSantis has shown more zeal in enforcing these new restrictions on how race can be taught in schools than the state in almost 30 years has ever been demonstrated toward ensuring that Black history is taught at all. The governor's office and the Florida Department of Education did not respond when asked about the state's efforts to enforce the mandate to teach Black history, but DeSantis recently elaborated on how he expects the subjects to be taught. Let's talk about a mandate with no money. So, for a state that has to be dragged to desegregation of all its schools well into the 70s, the move to require African American history in Florida classrooms was notably unceremonious. Lawmakers unanimously approved the mandate in 1994 with little debate. Few newspapers covered then Democratic Governor Lawton Chiles signing the bill into law. After it passed, the state created the African American History Task Force to help school districts with the new directive to come up with a strategy for implementation. But neither the law nor the Florida Department of Education set a deadline for districts to comply. Former state rep Rudolph Bradley, the Black lawmaker who originally sponsored the bill to require African American history back then, now says there was a major flaw in the legislation that kept it from accomplishing what he set out to achieve. Lawmakers didn't set aside any money for school districts to update their textbooks, buy new instructional materials, or train the teachers on these relevant subject areas within the African American history. Well, did I lose you guys yet? All right, excellent. The mistake on my part, he said, being a freshman, I didn't understand the importance of attaching appropriations, Bradley told CNN in a recent interview. I didn't understand what an unfunded mandate was and how difficult that would make it for school districts to incorporate. Even districts that had sought to comply with the law face hurdles. Among those early adopters in '94 was Pinellas County, where efforts to incorporate African American history into their lessons were underway prior to the law's passage, and where a teenage DeSantis was entering his sophomore year of high school that fall. At Deanland High School, a predominantly white school within walking distance of Florida Gulf Shores, DeSantis should have been among the first wave of students to be exposed to this more complete telling of history. The school already offered African American history as an elective, and the district had tapped the teacher of that class, Randy Lightfoot, to guide Pinellas schools into compliance with the new law. Lightfoot said DeSantis was not a student in his African American history class. By '96, Lightfoot was warning that his efforts were being stymied by lack of resources. Lightfoot struggled to convince the Pinellas School Board to acquire textbooks that included the new lessons on Black history, according to the St. Peter's Times, which also noted that the district cut his staff. The attempts to expand the curriculum to teach African American history also came during a period of racial strife in Peninsula County. In '96, riots broke out in St. Petersburg, the city 20 miles south of DeSantis' suburban home, after the police killed an unarmed black teenager during a traffic stop, and again when the officers involved were cleared of charges. Meanwhile, graduation rates for black male students remain stubbornly low in Pinellas. The Times reported, and the county school board had broached the controversial idea of curbing forced busing to desegregate the public schools, leading to a period of distrust between the board and its black residents. By the time DeSantis graduated in '97, having earned recognition as a decorated AP history student according to his senior yearbook, getting African American history in Pinellas School was still a work in progress, Lightfoot said. Statewide, only a handful of schools had earned exemplary status from the African American History Task Force by the end of that decade, meaning that they had reached benchmarks for compliance. Exemplary schools districts must demonstrate their curriculum included African American topics beyond Black History Month, training for teachers in the subject, involvement of parents in the learning, and collaboration with the local university for support. In '99, a bill that would require school textbooks to include African American history went nowhere in the state legislature. Carlton Owens, a black classmate of DeSantis, said he only saw people like himself reflected in the curriculum during Black History Month or lessons around slavery and the civil rights movement. The state put the material out for their district, said Lightfoot, now who is a history professor at St. Petersburg College, but they did not put any kind of money into check and make sure everyone was doing what they're supposed to do. We're trying to fill the gaps and holes in history, he added. At the same time, we had black male students who we thought could help improve their grades if they saw their stories in history and science and literature. We had pretty good success with it. But when we had the support of state leaders to do it, it was a different climate then. Discrepancies in teaching African American history. This is where this bill comes in. Back in 2019, the Florida Department of Education announced it will require districts for the first time to report how they were teaching required subjects, including Holocaust education, African American history, Hispanic heritage, women's history, civics, and more. A CNN review of those reports back last school year found wide discrepancies in how districts' lessons plans around the subject of African American history. Some districts provide lengthy plans for weaving the African American experience into social studies from kindergarten through high school graduation. Others suggest exploitation comes primarily during Black History Month. More than a dozen submissions largely parroted through requirements listed in the state law without any details of instruction. Leon County declared an exemplary school district by the African American History Task Force, included details like its lessons on African American scientists, songwriters, and artists during grades K through 5. Dixie County, near the Florida Panhandle, submitted 1,600 words on how it teaches African American history to high schoolers. 1,600 words? Madison County, a school district near the Florida-Georgia border, simply wrote, "Courses are taught on a daily basis by a Florida certified teacher," end quote. The district also stresses how Black History Month with daily mini lessons for all grade levels. The Florida Association of School Superintendents did not respond to a request for comment, of course. Forgive me, there's a lot, almost done. Democrats and advocates contend the state has done little with this information. They also say the administration has not yet indicated how it will ensure schools are complying with a new state law signed by DeSantis that requires annual instruction of the 1920 Okinawa Massacre. when dozens of black Floridians were murdered in a horrific election day racial cleansing. That's another piece of black history that's important. Democratic lawmakers say that they intend to introduce legislation that will require the state to enforce whether school districts are teaching African American history, as the law intends. Through its supporters acknowledge any bill is unlikely to gain traction in the state house controlled by Republicans. Excuse me. It won't go anywhere, said State Senator Chevron Jones, a member of the Legislative Black Caucus. But it will be a hell of a message that we're getting behind true and accurate black history being taught in the state of Florida. Early in his first term, there was some hope from the state's black community that DeSantis would forego a different path than some of his Republican predecessors. In one of his first acts as governor, DeSantis voted to pardon the Groveland Four. How many of you, by a show of hands, heard of the Groveland Four? Groveland Four. Groveland. All right, let's get into who they are. 2 black men who were lynched and 2 who received lengthy sentences for allegedly raping a white woman in 1949. That's who they are. You can Google more about it. Widely considered one of the darkest episodes in Florida's violent past, former Governor Rick Scott, who served 2 terms prior to DeSantis taking office, had refused to pardon the 4 men despite overwhelming evidence of their innocence. But DeSantis' posture changed following the 2020 killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. DeSantis responded to the national unrest by mobilizing the state's National Guard and pushing through what he called an anti-riot law that included harsh new penalties for protesters if a demonstration turns violent. DeSantis then turned his attention to schools. In June of 21, he urged the State Board of Education to ban the teaching of critical race theory, an academic framework based around the idea that systematic racism is embedded in many American institutions and societies. His administration then rejected math textbooks on the grounds that they included critical race theory and other forbidden topics. Last year, lawmakers approved one of DeSantis' top legislative priorities, the so-called Stop Woke Act, which said schools cannot teach that anyone is inherently racist or responsible for past atrocities because of the color of their skin. Last page, y'all. The bill, which DeSantis signed into law, also said schools could not teach that oppression of races had existed throughout the U.S. history, but not persuaded students to a particular point of view. The controversies around these actions have catapulted DeSantis into the national conversation on teaching race and helped fuel his rise as a potential presidential contender. Throughout these episodes, DeSantis has often maintained that African American history is built into Florida's educational framework. Florida statutes require teaching of all American history, including slavery, civil rights, segregation. DeSantis contended during his debate against his Democratic governor opponent last year, it is important that it's taught, but I think it's not good to scapegoat students based on the color of their skin. Reginald Ellis, a professor of history and African American studies at FAMU, Florida A&M University, said if students were adequately learning black history, he would see it firsthand in his classroom. What I find even at an HBCU, the vast majority of students have not really been exposed to much African American history and experience. That's why it's important to go into HBCU. Ellis said, it is a law on the books. There is a task force, but for the most part, it's clearly a curriculum that is being enforced. School districts effectively have the option to opt in or to opt out. Bradley, who also the original bill sponsor, said the law's shortcomings fall on those who have held the power in Tallahassee and in school districts for the past 3 decades, and not on DeSantis. Bradley, who changed his party affiliation from Democrat to Republican later in his political career, said he was supportive of DeSantis' education agenda and accused activists of using schools to drive a wedge between blacks and whites. Lastly, in his quote, "The law is still a work in progress, but if we want to use it as a tool to divide, then that is a total violation of the spirit of the law," Bradley said. "When I passed that bill, it was designed to bring people together, not to divide." All right. So that's my did you know. There's obviously, some action that's being taken place. As Dominique mentioned, going to Florida, handling that. There's some other stuff that's going on, but I want to hear from a couple people outside of mobilizing. What are some things that we could do? And even here in our own state of New York to protect Black history, African American history. It doesn't have to be in school, by the way.
What we could do to protect our Black history is to probably fight back. Because if you're trying to take something like the 1 month that we have to ourselves, then you're just being selfish, because Black people have been going through a lot as of like 1985, like all that, like going back to the 1500s. Yeah.
Thank you.
If you're just gonna take away the 1 month that we have respect for ourselves and we love ourselves, then that's selfish, and you just care about yourself and care that you have all the things that you need. You just don't care about anybody else.
Thank you, Rosie. Sister Word?
Hi, God bless you. I'm so glad we're here together. In listening to the article, I may be mistaken, but I believe that the African American Task Force needs to really take on the responsibility of actually editing the books that some of these schools are claiming they can't afford. So if they edit the books and actually print out a curriculum under the title of African American Task Force, then they can make sure it's supplied to each school, and each school cannot claim they can't afford anything because they will have copies of the curriculum put out by the African American Task Force. There's a lot of ways they can resolve the problem without depending on politicians who take a very long time to really go nowhere. So in the meantime, since the African American Task Force seems to be funded, their goal seems to be agreed upon, they just need to do more work and help publish information that they believe needs to be taught, and then make it easily accessible to each school, and then each school will be responsible for printing it for their staff. So similarly, it's a way to easily resolve some of the problems that they're claiming why they can't proceed. But thank you for the article. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your response.
The continuum of monumentalizing African American history is important and imperative. I'm going to say that in addition to continuing to till the tillery. For those that understand the meaning of that, it is because we want to make sure we are lives that are remembered. We are lives that are never lost, stolen, or forgotten ever again.
Thank you, brother. All right, close us out.
All right, so African history is very important, and your history is very important. So what you can do is maybe talk to your elders in your family and make a family tree. Do you know what a family tree is? Have you done it before? Yeah, and there's always new information that you could add to it, because you have a lot of cousins, uncles, aunts, grandparents, and it's good to know who these people were and what jobs they did and what type of personalities they've had, what contributions they've made, because you'll be surprised at who you're related to. So just keep digging deeper and deeper into your family history and remember it, because you're going to have to tell it to your children. And that's the way you can keep this history going. This is Kamala. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I have two takeaways, and the sister kind of echoed part of it. we are the first teachers of our own history. So for the OGs in the room, it's important, as rebellious as our millennials and Gen Zs are, we have to teach them our history. We can't leave it up to the educational system. So, our relatives, our distant relatives that live in other states, it's important that they know who they are, where they come from, and all of that. And also the very history of Harlem. There's a reason why a lot of people want to come here. Harlem has a lot of history, For the younger folks, they get to learn about that. The second thing that I wanted to point out, something that the freshman former rep noted that ties into this whole voting thing that we do. I don't mean to say voting thing disrespectfully, but when we talk about going out to vote and getting people to vote, it's important that we're voting for people who kind of have an idea of knowing what to do and what they're doing. The guy made a quote, "I didn't understand what an unfunded mandate was and how difficult that would make it for school districts to incorporate." This is somebody who has the ability to write legislation into law, but didn't understand that very important piece, which all these decades later is affecting the conversation that we're having now. So regardless of who you vote for, personally don't care, but in terms of community, it's important to ask these kinds of questions. The how you're going to do what you say you're going to do to make our lives better. But I'm sorry I kept y'all so long. I'm sorry? According to him. So when they signed this bill, my interpretation of this is they signed a bill saying, okay, this is what we require, but it's up to you to figure out how you're gonna roll it out. That's how I interpret it. Now, when you write it, you have to also have that in mind. You can't just tell somebody to do it. You kind of got to give them the resources to pull it off. So that's what I think. Fair enough? All right, I'm out. Next article.
Thank you, Trey. So let's get into the second Did You Know? It's going to be mine. It's not as long as Trey's, so you guys are all lucky. So let's get into it. Prosecutors will review all cases of the ex-officers charged in Tyree Nichols' death. Tyree Nichols' death is putting Memphis police under scrutiny in more ways than one, as Tennessee prosecutors say they will conduct a review of all the cases handled by the 5 former police officers who have been charged in it. The Shelby County District Attorney's Office confirmed in an email to NPR that it will review closed and pending cases connected to Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills Jr., Emmett Martin III, Justin Smith, and Tadarius Bean, who have all been fired and charged with second-degree murder. This is still an active and ongoing investigation, the office said, without elaborating on specifics. The former officers have been added to the county's list of law enforcement officers whose credibility has been questioned, the DA's office confirmed. 4 of the officers had prior violations at work. As NPR has reported, all but Bean had been reprimanded or suspended in recent years, either for failure to report the use of physical force, failure to report a domestic dispute, or for damages sustained to their squad cruisers, according to Memphis police files. The officers worked for a controversial special unit known as Scorpion, which the city disbanded in the wake of Nichols' death. It made 566 arrests between October 2021 and January 2022. Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland said last year. City residents have since come forward to share their experiences of other aggressive encounters with the unit, including 22-year-old Montarius Harris, who filed a federal lawsuit this week suing the city, and those same 5 police officers for allegedly beating him without cause just 3 days before they pulled Nichols over. Nichols, a 29-year-old father and FedEx worker, died January 10th, 3 days after officers beat him during a traffic stop. Nichols and the 5 former officers charged in his killing are black. Body camera footage of the brutal incident, released late last month, cast a spotlight on the city's law enforcement practices and renewed calls for police reform nationwide. Other first responders have been fired or suspended in the week since Nichols' death. The police department announced that a sixth officer has been fired and a seventh relieved of duty, while the fire department fired 2 EMTs and a lieutenant after an internal review. Officials said Tuesday that as many as 13 police officers could end up being disciplined. New documents released this week shed light on the alleged misconduct of the 5 officers charged in Nichols' death, including an allegation that Haley took photos of Nichols as he lay bleeding against a police car. It's reported that he then shared those images, including with non-police officers. NPR's Martin Cast told All Things Considered that the documents which pertain to the department's internal review paints a picture of officers with a very unprofessional attitude. Investigators say the officers broke department rules by using excessive force against Nichols and failing to report it, among other things. They also say officers took off their body cameras and that several were laughing and bragging about the encounter immediately after. In addition to putting the officers' other cases up for review, county officials put their names on a so-called list of police officials accused of being dishonest or facing criminal charges. That classification could prompt prosecutors to drop any cases involving their testimony, the New York Times reports, adding that some defense attorneys are compiling a roster of all officers who served in the Scorpion unit, which could imperil hundreds of cases across the city. Local defense attorney Brandon Hall told the Memphis newspaper The Commercial Appeal that he was in court Wednesday when he saw a prosecutor drop a case involving some of the officers in question and expects a similar outcome in other cases. Another defense attorney and former Shelby County prosecutor, Josh Corman, told the newspaper that the prosecutors have been reviewing cases connected to the 5 officers and that he thinks it would be a nightmare for any prosecutor to use them as a witness. Meanwhile, the Memphis branch of the NAACP is praising the DA's office for taking the step of reviewing the officers' old cases. Vicki Terry, the executive director of the NAACP's Memphis branch, told Memphis TV station WREG that her office received several police-related complaints after Nichols' death, though she didn't specify whether they were about those specific officers or the Scorpion unit. They displayed no integrity, so it makes me afraid that others have been treated this way, she said. If they go back and find out somebody might have been convicted for something that they did not do, you're definitely going to have to reopen cases. So, that is my Did You Know? Like I said, it is an update. I'm going to leave that off where it is. I think the article said all that needed to be said. These 5 police officers are going to be reprimanded for their actions. And now I will go on with the third Did You Know? By Patrice. Clap it up for Patrice, y'all.
Thank you, Giselle. Good evening, Huddle family. So have you guys heard of the name Darrell Williams? Who's heard of Darrell Williams recently? Oh, that's why we do Did You Knows. Is he breathing? Body cam footage provides insight into Darrell Williams' arrest and death. The video of a man's chase and arrest by Raleigh police outside a sweepstakes parlor in January was released Friday afternoon, providing insight into the final moments of his life before he died in police custody. The video of a man's chase and arrest, a judge ruled on Wednesday that the Raleigh Police Department could release the body cam footage of the arrest of Darrell Williams, 32 years old, who was shot 3 times with a taser and later died. His family had the chance to view the video before it was made available to the public, the judge said. The faces of people who were not involved in the incident will be blurred out of the video. 14 videos were released in all, along with a memo on the City of Raleigh's website that provided links to each video as well as compliance. The compilation video begins when officers driving through the parking lot, then approaching a vehicle to check the occupants. Officers speak to a woman in the car and ask if she's okay. She said, "I'm good. I'm the only person in the car at the moment." The woman says that they were okay, and officers then approach the car continuously. The text on the video indicates that the officers could see an open container of alcohol and marijuana in plain view in the car. An officer asks the occupants to get out of the car and have a seat. The car occupants can be heard asking why are they being asked to exit their vehicle, but they were giving no answer. "I'm not doing nothing at all," says Williams. That's Darrell Williams. "What's going on, sir?" Williams is asked to place his hands on the car while an officer checks his pockets. On the video, it provides context saying that Officer Robinson found a folded dollar bill with a white substance consistent with the appearance of cocaine in it in Williams' pocket. Based on that, he makes a decision to arrest Williams. As he begins to arrest Williams, you can hear Williams screaming, Why? What's going on?" William breaks away and starts running a short distance, while officers tell him to get on the ground. "Stop or you'll get tased," warns one of the officers. Less than a second later, you hear someone yell, "Tase him, tase him." And they hit Williams with the stun gun as he falls to the ground shouting, "I'm not doing nothing." Multiple officers can be seen on top of Williams trying to arrest him. He breaks away and runs again. Officers each run after him. A few seconds later, push him to the ground, commanding him to get down and put his hands behind his back. As the officers hold Williams down, they warn him if he keeps resisting, he will be hit with the taser again. "I've got heart problems," Williams shouts. Please leave me alone." Police can be seen hitting him with the taser again. Williams was hit with a taser 3 more times. According to the police report, officers were patrolling the businesses in the shopping center on Rock Quarry Street on January 17th when they saw Williams sitting in the car outside of the sweepstakes. The report also says, "Stop or you're going to get tased again." Williams again said, "I have heart trouble. Please leave me alone." Williams was hit again with the taser. 1 minute later, he's motionless. Over the next 5 minutes, officers monitor Williams and continue to check his pulse. Officers seemed to find the pulse, and then they didn't. About 6 minutes passed between the time Williams was hit with the taser again and they began CPR. There are mixed reactions in Raleigh right now in the wake of the release of this footage of Williams' arrest. "It's such a tragedy," said Gerald Givens with Raleigh APX NAACP. "Feelings are so raw in our community now, especially after what happened in Memphis to Tyree Nichols. I will tell you, anytime this is from the mayor of Raleigh, anytime that there's a loss of life, it's taken very seriously by the department. We will ensure a full investigation will happen." So, again, for those of you who hadn't heard about Darrell Williams' death, and of course the video was just released, the community is outraged. I just want to know from some of our young people and some of our seasoned folks, what do you think can be done to continue to push for the act, the George Floyd Act, to be passed nationally? Do we create a hashtag? Do we start a national campaign? You know, National Action Networks is on it, but what can we do as an organization that has so many chapters throughout this country to make them hear us to pass this act? Because this is going to continue to keep happening.
What I think we could do is probably not physically, but mentally hit them with what's happening right now as of what Tyree Nichols and I don't really remember the first name, but Darrell Williams and George Floyd and everything that's happening, I need them to notice that there's about 2 murders in about the same year, and we just started the new year. What is going on with the NYP? Well, I won't say NYP, but the police department in the countries. I need to know what's going on.
Thank you, Kaylee. Hey, Rosie.
First of all, I just need them to stop and think what you're doing. He's saying that he has heart problems. He's probably either telling the truth or he just probably doesn't want to get tased. And I understand that because it really hurts. And that could really kill him. That could kill him. So you have to stop. Yes, I know. And they didn't stop and think that it might do that. They didn't. They just killed him.
Thank you, Rosie. Come on, Gina.
I just want to say this. Everybody, if you could, I feel like more people should protest for all the murders that's happening in the NYPD, killing these people, and a lot of them dying at a young age. And everybody needs to know that a hashtag don't really do nothing. Everybody gotta go out in the street and protest and say their name.
All right. From the mouths of our young people. I love it.
Okay, Biden has already indicated he could do something. Now, it's going to be harder for him to do anything because Republicans are in charge of one house. So I got to calm down right now because I'm really pissed off. I really am. You know, when they had control of both houses, this is when you make your moves to do what you can to get the laws in effect. So, hold on, I got to calm down again. I'm so angry. I'm really so angry. One thing in listening to these stories and even seeing on the videos, now legislation, okay, they're going to get to it when they can, all right? We can't really depend on that. But what I noticed, even in this article, and even on the tape when I watched Tyree Nichols being assaulted and murdered, is that these police officers had no handcuffs out. Like they wasn't even trying to handcuff. And it doesn't seem like they were trying to handcuff this person either. Because if the intent is to handcuff, at least one of those police officers has to have their handcuffs out. Or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or how many extra other police officers are there can definitely pin somebody down, get one hand and get the other hand. So I think the obvious point that we can make is require officers, if their intent is really to arrest, and they keep saying it was their intent, get the handcuffs out and make an attempt to handcuff the person and get this safely to wherever they're supposed to be going to so they can get due process. Thank you.
Thank you.
What I'm about to say was on my mind on and off all day, so I'm surprised that it came up now. Well, not really. So, set up what I'm about to say. My mom passed away July 1998. She worked as a teacher for Teachers Insurance in New York City. And they was telling me and my sister, you can't have no money. You can't have it. She died. She took too long to die. She was out. So I found out because I was working selling cars, and they told you that the headline giveth and the small print taketh away. And so they said, listen, why don't you go get the policies and procedures manual of the teacher's insurance? And I did, and I found out that they was wrong. She was still alive for another 2 weeks before she would have ran out, and they ended up giving us the checks and the money, which made me cry, but at least it happened the way it happened, right? So what I was thinking about today, and this is perfect for this, is that I believe that NAN should create a legal board of education, a board of directors. What I mean by that is that we should have, I wouldn't be good at it, but I know somebody could be, that we should have an organization that knows all the rules, policies and procedure, and the trainings of the police departments, so that we could train everybody that's not in the police department how to deal with them, know what to expect, and all of that stuff. Because right now they hide behind their laws. And when we can see through them, then they can't play that game anymore. So I'm like, maybe that's what we would do, because we could do that for us first and then the rest of the nation. I think we should do that, and there you go, I'm done.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
What you was asking, but I believe it's important for us to not only study the attitudes of these currently incarcerated officers who have been found guilty and have been charged through the due process procedural laws, that they are bound and ramified within proper jurisdiction. Duly is to be noted that these new laws we're pushing for are for a good reason. But what are these officers who are killing these individuals saying? What are they saying about the training that they receive? What are they saying about whether or not they agree that they've been egregious? They agree that they've overstepped their boundaries. And why? What is their opinion back behind? So that way we can try to understand what is the mind of this criminal policeman. What is their mindset? What is their motive? What is their agenda? Is there an agenda? Are these people just floating through the police academy with the wrong attitude, unnoticed, under the radar? I mean, let's be serious, because scientifically, it's important for us to understand now that these people are being found and made visible, that there is a whole psychosocial study that should be involved and attached very closely to these particular proving cases. So that's one of the things that was on my mind I wanted to share with you all. Patrice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And our last comment, then I'll wrap it up.
Hi, everyone. All right. I know her for a long time. But anyway, my name is Carolyn Tyson, T. Austin, because I'm married. But I wanted to say to these kids, right? Oh, boy, here come the waterworks. I apologize. Right? Y'all on the right road, right? I didn't have all this when I was growing up, right? But what I did have, we had the community that will raise a child, huh? If I see you doing wrong, I can tear your butt up and go on home and tell your mother. Now you won't get another one. They ain't like that these days. You know, you can't talk to these kids. You can't tell them nothing. What we need to do, right? Just take them to places right where the white folks at. If any white folks in here, I ain't racism. I'm just keeping it real, right? Take them to other places and see. You don't see no liquor stores on every other corner. Huh? Y'all got to know, right? This is a genocidal thing, right? They got free cannabis, right? Which is reefer, marijuana, right? They got liquor stores on every other corner. Huh? We're loaded up with guns, huh? Crack cocaine. Huh? That's one thing, man. Y'all got the privilege now. Y'all know this thing, right? This was an outlet when I was little. I mean young, right? But y'all know, y'all well aware. So stay on the right track, right?
That's right. Thank you so much. We have to wrap it up. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so, and thank y'all for everyone's passionate statements. We definitely are still on it. You know, yes, we always appreciate prayers for the families. A lot of the families that come through NAN's doors appreciate it. Yes, we appreciate Vice President Kamala for mentioning it at the Tyree Nichols funeral. Yes, thank you, President Biden, for mentioning it at the State of the Union. But we must pass this, y'all. We must pass the George Floyd Policing Act. We must get it passed. I know they mentioned it, and trust me, that's a huge deal to get up at a national funeral and mention this with Reverend Sharpton's help, of course. But we're grateful, and they talk about it, and it sounds great, but we need to get it passed. This young man should still be alive, just like a lot of other young men. Tyree should still be alive. Darrell Williams, he should still be alive. And again, we are the National Action Network, so we're going to stay on this nationally. And I know Reverend Sharpton is not going to rest until this law is passed. Thank y'all for mentioning it. Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, Vice President. But we need to get it done, and we will stay on it until it's done. And again, thank you for your time. And this is the wrap of our Darrell Williams, Did You Know? Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice. I heard some very interesting comments and opinions. So that wraps up our Did You Know segment. Before I have my young huddler close us out in prayer, I have another quick announcement from our young huddler, Gino. Clap it up for him, y'all.
So my mom really know all the information, but it's about how Yusuf Salam, about the trip to Albany. He's gonna be out there. The one that was in the exonerated 5. All of them, right, Mom? All of them, yeah. But if you want to come, what time it start? 6:30 in the morning at the Fred E. Samuel Democrat Club. That's on 135th in between 7th Avenue and Lenox.
Yeah, so we do have a bus that's leaving because it's not enough buses, apparently. And so the Freddie Samuels Democrat Club decided to get a bus. And so we will be taking names and numbers. We have probably about 15, maybe 20 seats left. So you can see me. I'll forward the information to Ricky Davis. But what I came up here to say was March the 6th through the 10th is Civics Week. And so we need to engage with all our students and get them involved with civics. And also on February the 16th from 4 to 5:30 at UFT, the Brooklyn Borough Office, which is 335 Adams Street, they are going to be having a community discussion on how guns violence affects schools. So that should be very interesting. I'm going to send the flyer tomorrow to Derek, and hopefully he could print it out and put it to the back. But just take down, or you could take the picture from my phone. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So I would like for my young huddler, Kaylee, to close us out in prayer tonight. She is in Bible study, so clap it up for Kaylee, y'all.
Good evening, Huddle. All right, let us all bow our heads. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our daily bread. We thank you for our parents and the people that have loved us in our life. We thank you for you and Jesus. We thank you for everybody that's in our lives, so is mine. Amen.
Okay, that concludes our huddle for tonight. Make sure when y'all get y'all food, y'all say please and thank you, and hand sanitizer. It is the cold season.